2021's maturity model for Microsoft 365 practitioners. Marc and Emily have sort of dangerously let the two Simons run the show today. So I'd like to thank David for hosting and setting up the recording. Thank you for that. So today we're going to be talking about, so we've been, in the last few sessions, we've been talking about various aspects of the maturity model. And today we're going to talk about some tooling that, to be fair, Mr. Hudson has done most of the work on to build up to help you understand how you could run some workshops around the maturity model for Microsoft 365. So we look forward to your sort of thoughts and feedback. Right, so could I have the next slide, please? Oh, Mr. Hudson, you're on mute. Thank you. As ever, we've done a few of these now. We'll give a overview of sort of what this practitioners group is looking to do, and an overview of the maturity model, and then discuss if there's been any updates to artifacts, and we'll then have a together mode picture, and then we'll get into the discussion, which is how to run a maturity model for Microsoft 365 Workshop. So next slide, please. So, we talk about what is the point of this maturity model? What's it aiming to do? So its purpose is to enable organizations to get more from the Microsoft 365 platform, understand where the benefits and the impacts may come from when we implement the competencies in the Microsoft 365 maturity model. And it's really, the point of it is it's not a technology-driven framework. It's designed to be sort of business focused and using business language, and allowing businesses which generally have similar needs and wants, and understand how they can use the 365 platform to realize this. So we have a number of competencies which I won't go through now, but just an overview around those core things which businesses need to be able to do. So businesses need to be able to manage content and improve the way that the teams collaborate and communicate, and about find things. And where we are at the moment is we are making a start on the infrastructure side, we're always looking for people to help out there. That's probably one of our weaker areas as a collective. But we do have supporting articles, which are how to elevate, so how to elevate from one level to another for a particular competency. So if I take the customization development, how you'd elevate from a level 100 to a level 200. And we've got some principles as well, so helping understand the principles of search or communication as well. And it's also aimed at allowing a shared language and enabling you to socialize the Microsoft 365 platform and the benefits that it can have for a business, and have those conversations with senior stakeholders and managers, so that you're able to help do the cool stuff, the stuff which we know can help a business. Sometimes the business just doesn't know it yet. So that's the purpose. Have the next slide, please. So the maturity model we've got, it's based off the capability maturity model, and we have these 5 levels of maturity, going from this level 100, this initial chaotic world, to the level 500, sort of this Narnia unicorn maturity level, where everything is automated and just almost has reached self-actualization, I guess, is working beautifully, and we can measure and understand how we can tweak and make that area better, that process, that competency better. So we move from level 100 to level 500. Level 300 is where we see that's kind of that's a really good place to be, and different businesses will will want to reach different levels depending on what it is that they need to do and need to get from those competencies. So a regulated industry will would expect would need to have, you know, level 300 around sort of its management of content. So yeah, sorry, yes, I've been reading the C.S. Lewis books with my daughter recently, so Narnia is just in there a lot at the moment. Right, next slide, please. So, you know, the purpose of this as well, you know, this session and everything we're doing, you know, it's a community-based effort. You know, we just put some time each week to get involved and do what we can, and we'd love to get other people involved. And so you can get involved by contributing on GitHub or presenting a case study. If anybody fancies talking about how they've done their own, you know, they use the maturity model or aspects of it to get some benefit, or even if it was a nightmare and there's, you know, there was pain, I think that would also be equally useful too. But we're available, you know, through GitHub. You can create Git issues and start discussions. So please, you know, get involved. And the idea of this practitioners group is it's sort of a safe space to hone your pitch and, you know, discuss your ideas and problems, and hopefully we can all, you know, make it a bit better, make it easier to get organizations to adopt 365. So that's it. Right, next slide, please. So thank you very much for everybody who joined us for June. I hope you found it really useful. The next session is going to be August the 17th. I think it's not running a maturity model workshop. I think it's going to be on some advanced concepts. I think we've got some slides later on. But if you want to get involved and understand how to get involved with the community docs and how to contribute to to your first time, you know, Git pull request, then there's some sessions here available which are on another date. I'm guessing sort of later on this month. I'm guessing the end of next Tuesday, I would imagine, and then this Wednesday. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Dave.
Right. Yeah, we gave those dates into August just so everybody had a little bit of time to spend with the family.
Yes, that sounds like a good idea. Right, so it's picture time. We're going to switch on together mode. So if everybody could turn their cameras on and say hello and wave, that would be fab. I'll let David's going to do the honors, I believe.
Yes, let me do that.
Thank you.
You know what? If you could, just one sec.
Do you want us to kill the sharing?
No, you're okay. I'm changing over to, well, now it doesn't want to. When I go to together mode, oh, there we go. Okay, all right. Give me just one sec. And we'll give everybody an opportunity to wave hello. Teams did not. I had to switch over to large mode, then back. So let's. All right. Let's give that a wave and show the community how happy we are. Excellent. Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Next slide, please. So something which we have been discussing within the group is whether, you know, should we record everything? And we talked about originally it being a safe space, and, you know, happy if we do make everybody, you know, make it a safe space and we don't record and publish the recordings. But we thought there's quite a few people say, oh, could you share the session, and we're not. So we just thought we'd ask the question again, if what people thought. So please feel free to come off your mics or to put something in the chat. Simon, someone's asking if they could you allow them to have the power to flip through the slides. So yeah, just, you know, if that's something which is okay. And so maybe, you know, we talked about this, Simon, didn't we, that maybe we'd have a section which we record, then we stop, then we have the safe space bit, and then we continue on. But particularly for a session like today, where there's a lot of really cool tools being sort of discussed, there's a little bit probably less of a discussion than I think it would make sense. But yeah,
Yeah, I think, and I'll just chime in here. It's a tenet of sharing is caring to not record these sessions when discussions get started. So we will absolutely kick that off because we don't want anyone to feel like I can't ask my questions because number one, maybe it's going to be something I don't want my organization to share, or you don't want to feel intimidated by asking it, knowing it's going to get recorded, and that's okay. I feel the same. So at that point, once we absolutely get to that point of discussion, we'll cut that off. So don't worry about that.
Cool. Okay, brilliant. Right. Okay. Well, after that, let's move on. So, yeah, we're going to just quickly, if you want to say your piece, you want to get involved, then please, raise your hands if you like what you're hearing, thumbs ups and all that good stuff. Yeah, when you are talking, it'd be lovely to see your face as well. So don't be shy, and I will let Simon kick off. Thanks very much.
Cool. Thanks, Simon. Okay, so we're going to do this session a bit differently to some of the other ones that we've run. This is going to be more of a show and tell with me in the pilot seat. Given that Jeff Bezos has just successfully landed, maybe it should be astronaut seat today. So we're going to take a bit of a show and tell. Absolutely, you've got questions, please stick your hand up or post the question into the chat. But that notwithstanding, I'm going to try and keep the pace going because there's quite a bit to do, and then we'll have more of a discussion at the end. But if you've got a burning question, it's fine to interject. We're going to try and lay out some agendas for how you might choose to run some maturity model workshops and some tools that we've built. Some of those built on some legacy tooling that we had, and some of those off some ideas that Sharon threw into the pot about a month ago. So we're going to share those. They're for you to use as you wish. So don't feel that these are prescriptive. It's a set of tools to modify to your needs. What we do want to know, so that we can try and improve these further, is what have we got right and what we've got wrong? Is there anything that we've missed completely? Has anybody else got some useful tools that they use when running workshops that they want to share back into the community that we can incorporate into this, or just some insights on running workshops that they would like to share? I'm a bit concerned, I guess, about it's fine if I'm running a workshop for a company of 20 or 50 people, and maybe if I'm running a workshop for a company of thousands, I can find a team. But how do we do that scaling? How do we make sure that the tools and the approaches work well for all sizes of organizations? So if you've got thoughts for that, let us know. And then, is this kind of tooling useful? Because if the sense is that it is, then we will try and spend more time building tools and less time building documents. But yeah, let us know what you need. I'm going to start, though, just with thinking about the challenges of running these things. I mean, the tool we're going to show you is based on something I built, based on something that Sadie Van Buren built a decade ago for SharePoint. And SharePoint itself is pretty bloody complex. And then you try and scale this up to Microsoft 365, the whole platform. And we've got this problem that 365 is just slightly huge. And it's really complex. And it's not always clear to know where to start, and there isn't a best place to start. And we know that if you're going to try and assess every aspect of maturity across the entire platform with the entire organization, that's going to take a chunk of time. So we mustn't lose sight of the fact that we probably can't eat the whole elephant in one go. And when we try and lay out all of this stuff to the ordinary mortals in our organizations, we know that some of them are going to either be overwhelmed by the amount of new information or struggle with the amount of time and investment that they need to make in it. So we know that. We know that people want to run before they walk, and that's a particular problem that I have. I like to walk, or I like to walk after I've learned to run, and we need to get that in the right order. Not everyone gets the benefits. And not everyone, and again, I'm in that right bucket, not everyone wants to really establish where we are now before they start building the future. And that would be a mistake. You've got to understand where we're starting from. So there's all these different problems. I'm not going to read all the rest out. There's all these problems. We recognize them and we need to take them into account when we're trying to build these workshops. Right. So let's just think about some approaches. This is what we've come up with as a candidate approach to building a set of workshops. The first thing is actually to get the organisations you're working with or for on board. So you've got to create some kind of proposal that lays out your pitch for why we should do these workshops. And I think that a great place to start is a Simon Sinek concept, and let's start with the why. The purpose of doing these workshops. And I think there is a strong purpose. You can mold it to your need, but I think this is all about making your organisations, your businesses more successful. And running some investigative workshops to develop an action plan, to develop that road to success, understanding strengths and weaknesses and needs, and especially de-emphasizing the role of technology, but the benefit of technology is what it's about, but the detail of the technology isn't so important, as part of a proposal is a key. Emphasize the fact that the technology choices will drive these benefits from these different competences. That's what it's about, not getting into the detail of, oh, we should be turning on this feature in Excel, or we should be setting up governance in email. That isn't where we're at right now. And certainly not saying I should be turning on sharing mode or whatever it is in Teams. We're not at that level. This is about the high level pitch of the benefits. Yes, that's the one. Thank you for that, Renee. Right, and equally important, if you're going to have to pitch this to get buy-in from the organisation, think carefully who you're going to pitch it to, who the stakeholders are who are going to support you in this workshop. And I'm not going to go into a massive amount of detail about this, but I think it's important to start with getting people on board to let you go through the whole potentially quite onerous and painful process. Then after that, we get to move on to a helicopter view. So this is something that I picked up from Sharon's conversation with us, say a month ago, which is not try and get into the detail to begin with, but to try and do a fairly high level, fast and simple workshop that sets out some expectations, uses some lightweight approaches to get people to understand or discuss where they think they are right now and where they think that they would like the organisation to be. So what are the weaknesses in your organisation? Can we pinpoint those in terms of parts of the organisation and parts of the maturity model competency set? So we might say, we know that marketing are deeply rubbish at process. We know that communication are in need of some improvement with their communication competency, because they only think about it from this perspective. We know that operations are really good at process, but not so great at collaboration. So let's do some high-level stuff to identify what parts of the organisation have got what sort of needs and what the overall company strategy should be, and what would a high-level action plan look like. And part of that is to say, where should we do deep dives in the organisation with particular competences? And that sets us up to do the next set of workshops. So far, so good. So follow-up workshops then would be deep diving with a more precise and more analytical tool where you think the greatest needs are, which is going to be where you've got the biggest problem or where you can drive the biggest business benefit. And sometimes, if I'm honest, it's also where the low-hanging fruit is, or where there's a strategic value in getting a part of the organisation on board, because they might be the ones that evangelise it to the rest of the organisation. So there's this mix of deciding where you're going to do additional deeper workshops and why you're going to do it in those places. And that actually takes us to the end of sort of, the first round. If you've done all that, you've got your action plan, you're rolling it out, you're starting to deliver benefit. And then the final stage is at some point, and I'm going to suggest it's about a year's time, you then go back and do some progress workshops to measure where are we now, how much change have we affected, and what else do we need to do. So it's now getting into this sort of plan, do, act, improve sort of Deming cycle, sort of a proper quality cycle to say, we've done some things, we've measured it, we know where we are, now we're going to make the next set of steps. So that's what we think the overall approach is. Just to be clear, all these slides and other resources are going to be available to you. So Again, I'm going to fly through some of these because I want to get into the tools themselves without using up all of the time. So this is kind of what I've said. It's about starting with the why, decide who you're going to pitch it to, set some expectations. And again, the kind of things that we do on these calls about, participate, get your workshop attendees to be open. There are no wrong answers. Try and get consensus in workshops. Don't let people bow to seniority because, look, I'm a senior director in my organization and I know that I'm wrong or uninformed a lot of the time. So I think it's really important to get people not to go, he's the boss, what he says is the answer. I want to see what the ground truth is when I run workshops. We also think it's really valuable to pre-brief people so they bring examples of content and process and issues and opportunities to those workshops. So they come in with their own personal agenda going, look, we've got a problem around communication in marketing, and how are we going to solve that, or whatever their particular problem is, and address some of these issues about, why is this process or this thing annoying or takes so long or frustrating for us, or frustrating for our customers. But bring those problems to the meeting. Right, let's move my slides along. So this is what we think the overview of a helicopter workshop looks like. So it's a fast, simple workshop, and we're not going to be very analytical about this. We're going to base it on people's judgment. It's focused on getting a sense of the entire competency set across the organization. And as I said before, about defining strategy. Where are we? Where do we want to get to? Which competencies are most needed in our organization? Which teams need to have the most attention? And where do we have pockets of expertise that we can lean on, draw on, and perhaps even sort of cross-populate? There's some great stuff you can do in bigger organizations, potentially in smaller ones, where you go, this guy's done some great work. We're going to implant him into this other team for a while so that he can take that expertise with him. Right, let's just move this slide along. We've talked about setting expectations. Again, I'm not going to go through that again. And then we're going to look at these setup instructions. So I'm going to show you a tool in a minute, but what we're going to do using the tool is set up the tool. So feed in the organization we're talking about, and some dates and those kind of things. And then we're going to run the workshop. And that's about familiarizing everyone with some criteria. Those criteria are the same criteria that we've used all the way through the maturity model. So if you've read the maturity model, go and reach out and grab the criteria that describe the different levels of 365. They're the same things that Simon showed us earlier on slide 5 or thereabouts. So we talk about level 100 means that we look like this and we do these things. Level 200, we're doing more repeatable activities. Level 300, it's documented and defined. Level 400, it's repeatable, documented, refined, and we're measuring it, and we have feedback loops. Level 500 is about automating a lot of that process. But it's really important going into this high level overview that we've ensured that people understand that that's what we're measuring maturity as. And it's definitely not about the technical features. Just because someone has got all the security features set up and running does not mean that their process is running at level 500 or 400 or even at level 200. If they haven't documented it and got it embedded, it's probably a level 100 or 200 only. So that's important. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a discussion with the people in the workshop about where do we think we are, for the sake of argument, with our content. And where on that level of 100 to 500 do you, as individuals, and then as groups, so reaching a consensus, think we should say the current level of the organization is for content? And we should call out in that any examples of parts of the organization who are really good and parts of the organization who are a bit rubbish. So we're going to do that, and we're going to do that across all of the competencies. And then we're going to run it again and go, okay, that's maybe is all true. Let's do it again, but think about what should we look like in a year's time. Where do we want to be for all of these competencies? Let's say we're running at level 200 and 300 on average. Where do we want to be at level 300 or 400? And which are the parts of the organization who have to be absolutely excellent at that? So that's what we're going to do. And I think what I should do is show you what this tool looks like. So I'm going to do a quick bit of sharing swapping. I'm going to try and share screen number 3, please. And with a little bit of luck and a following wind, everyone can now see my screen number 3, which is where I've got the Excel tool that we've built. Let me just talk this through. And if you've got questions as I go through this, please please do interject. I'm keeping an eye on the chat. So this is the tool. I'm going to start at the back and work forward, strangely. So those instructions that I just described to you and shared on the PowerPoint, they're all in here. It tells you exactly how to do it. And it also gives you those levels. So you should be able to work through with this Excel sheet shared with your workshop attendees and go, right, this is what we're going to try and work out. We're going to try and say, are we on level 100, etc. This is the overview. These are the criteria. So I would be sharing that with them. We then have a data capture sheet. And this is where we're going to capture all this stuff. So we're going to say content. Let's name. We might run this workshop with a bunch of different people. That's absolutely fine. So I might go and spend some time with the marketing team and the exec team and the operations team and do it with them. So here's where we put that group in. So I'll run this live. Let's say I'm going to do a session with the MM4M365 PMP team. That's you lot. I'm going to enter that. And then we're going to say, have a discussion about how good do we think we are at content management? And we're going to do that as a discussion and a consensus. So just to prove the point, can I ask everyone just to throw in what their view is of our level of content management that we're doing as part of this Microsoft 365 maturity model, maturity modeling. So just throw into the chat, do you think it's level 100, 200, 300, 400? And what I'll do, I'm going to capture that. This is over to you guys. You need to throw some numbers into chat. Thank you, Jasmine. Okay, cool. Thank you. I see we've got some scores coming now. Cool. So look, it's coming in around level 200 to 300, which is great. And that's exactly what I wanted. I won't push you too far. So let's just go and say, look, we reach a consensus. We've got some good practice, some gaps, some of us are better than others. So I'm going to go with a score of 250. So the model is, although you should be at level 200 or 300, when we're doing this kind of consensus, we'll allow multiples of 10. So I'm just going to pick a number. We would use the workshopping process, have the conversation with the workshop attendees, get their views, have the discussion, and then go, okay, so what do we think? Are we at 200, 210, 240? And someone will go, we're at 400, and you have the debate, and eventually you'll settle in on some kind of number. Yes, you can do 150. So Kathy, let's say I go and run this same exercise with another group. So I do the same workshop this afternoon or tomorrow or whatever my time zone is, and maybe another group goes, no, we're at 150. So I'll put that in there as well. And the tool is automatically calculating what our mean value is. So if we were to do that same thing again for how good are we in the whole identification thing, we haven't done ID. That's a competency we haven't written yet. But oh no, I tell a lie. These are, we've actually, I should have read my notes. What we've done is for each competency, we've broken out the sub-competencies. So at lifecycle management, we did that score, and I'm going to just accelerate things. Let's say we now say content. How are we good at identity and identification and doing sort of tagging and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, we're really good at that. We're going to come in at 300, and the other group goes, oh, we're pretty good at 250. How good are we at formatting and presenting the content we've got? Yeah, well, it's pretty good, but marketing have really nailed it, comms have really nailed it, operations are good, but sales are still a bit all over the place. So we might say we're coming at 280, and another group agree, and it's kind of there. And what about our storage strategy? We're going to come in at, and again, we'll do the conversation, and we come in at storage is really good. Everything is being stored in OneNote and SharePoint and Teams, and we've got an active process for that, and we monitor that, and IT give us feedback, and we come in with some scores. And I'm going to just make some numbers up right now. But yeah, so this one might be the marketing team. And we can go on and run these quick workshops with other groups. I'm going to just run through and go collaboration. Yeah, we're pretty good at that. I won't do the team B yet. Information architecture, we're pretty rubbish at that. Collaborating on content, yeah, we're in a good place on using our tools for that. Task management, oh, we haven't even thought about doing task management as a collaborative exercise, so we're down there. Governance and security, yeah, really should be better. Information architecture, yeah, comms being who they are, it's not as good as it should be, but the content, pretty good. Oops. Task management for comms, still not very good. Governance security around search. It's kind of okay because it's imposed. Oh, that's nonsense. Oh, look, the data validation's kicked in. That was nice of it. We're pretty solid on the technology we're employing. We even go so far as to 350. The UX, it's okay. And then we haven't filled in this last one. Right, so that's all the magic done. That's the hard work done. We go to the dashboard now. This is where we've done some real work. So what we've done by running that workshop, getting consensus on where each group that we do the workshop is, has reached in terms of their scores, it's now plotted that out on a radar plot. And you can see a bunch of things coming out here. We can see some data that we've put in up here. These are the means of the values. Anything which is green flagged is where we're really good as an organization, as good as we get. And anything that's red flagged is where we're rubbish on that. I need to tweak this tool because I've got a 0 in there. It's dragging the average down. So I need to think about that. There's a good bit of play testing for me there. And you can see that it's plotted it out. And we've got 2 charts. We've only done one test at the moment, but it'll give us some different plots according to the tools. A trick I really like to do when I'm running these kind of workshops is get, say, a shop floor team or a down in the dirt team and get their view. And then they run the same thing with a management team or the supervisors or the executive group, because there's some really interesting differences that I see. I mean, they're kind of consistent differences in most organizations, but I see some interesting differences between what the people who are managing and the people who are doing think the organization is like. And I think that's a really instructive educational position set. Right, so then what happens? You run it again with as many groups as you like. I'll stay on here. Then what we do is, with the same groups, we talk to them a bit more, capture any of their thoughts, identify any, we've got some stuff here about gap analysis, identify any bad performers and high performers and put some commentary around it. And then we agree, or we do it individually, depending on your model. Are you going to reach recommendations by consensus, or are you going to tell the organization what you as a practitioner think you should do, and you pop those into this recommendation section here? And then just to finish that off, next year, or some point in the future, I will probably run this again. So next year I might go, actually, we've done pretty well. We've dragged that up to 300. We're running at 320 on that. We're at 280 still. We kind of dropped back a bit there. I'm just going to stick some numbers in. Made some progress. Made some progress there. That's pretty solid now. Even better. Dragged then up to there. 300. Still room for improvement. 200. 360, 390. So if we now look at these numbers, we've now got a progress chart. So we can look at where we've made advances and where we're not making any progress, and go, okay, if we're not making any progress, maybe we need to put some additional resource into driving that part of the organization. So this one would be a worry for me. We still haven't got it much further than we really wanted to. So that's the core of the tool. And the idea is we'll run that tool across, all of the different. I've made a mistake, which I'll explain in a minute. But we're going to run that across all of the different communication tools. The screw up I've done, just to make sure we're really clear, is that's actually one of the deep dive tools. So I apologize for that. And what I should have been doing is this thing on this high level tool. And this has got all of the competencies. It's exactly the same process with the instructions, the data capture, but this data capture just looks at each of the competencies at a high level without going into the detail and gives us that same deep dive model. So hopefully that all makes sense. I'm just going to read the comments. And again, if you want to come on and ask anything in particular now before I move on to the next session, please do so. Right, and Simon D, feel free to help me with any of the questions that you think need calling out.
Yeah, so Seb's got an interesting one. He's sort of asking, well, how do we go about explaining the scoring system and the competencies to a body of people that have no idea about maturity models and the like? So, you know, how would you go about that? So I talked about.
For me,
yeah, go on.
Yeah, far away, Simon.
Like I say, you know, you would use the characteristics and to understand which level you are at. You know, when you start, say, looking at collaboration and if the characteristics, say, from level 100, where we talk about, you know, out of the box collaboration insights are created without structure or organization. And if more characteristics are falling into a particular level, then you can understand where the business is. And then, you know, you can then look at what the impacts are and the benefits, you know, using the maturity model content to understand why it is you might want to move from that level to another level and what the benefits would be.
The way that I've done it with some success is I tend to start with that simple chart on the right hand side of the screen, the level 100 through 500, because it's not too wordy and people can hang there thinking around the bullet points and the keywords. And then what I get them to do is I ask people to pick a process and describe the content, for example, in that process, because content seems to be fairly easy to get your head around. And it's like talking about the content in your marketing literature process, and get the team to describe the content that they know about. And then we'll have a conversation about it and go, okay, so it sounds to me like you've got some routine activity, but have you documented how you go about generating these pieces of collateral or whatever it is? And I'll ask the questions and get people to describe it. And then we'll anchor that particular example as, well, that sounds like it's a level 200. No, it sounds like you've got some pretty defined processes and it's at level 300. So I do it by talking about the levels and then anchoring it against their examples. And then I would probably go on to say, so let's imagine you made this stuff better. What if you were using some SPC or real-time analytics to get feedback on the use of that stuff? And you had some team who was looking at those analytics and using it to improve that. I think that would look like level 400. So I'd then describe what the future case looked like in terms of the next level up. And that's how I go about introducing them to those ideas. And my experience is most people get that. You know, they may not really understand the whole modeling process, but they understand how things are better when you move up from, you know, just making it up as we go along through to, you know, documented through to analyze and improve. So that's how I do that. And the scoring system is just that. You know, it's like if we are predominantly doing all of these things, then you are at level 200 or 300. And if you've got pockets of stuff above that, well, you're not up 300, but you're on the way. And so we'll just agree a consensus of score. And that's just a judgment. That really is just saying, you know, I think we're really good. We're at 280, and someone goes, no, in this area we're just a bit shit, really. And we'll just say, well, where do we feel comfortable? It's not about being precise with our analytics, because you'll never get that. It's about getting an aggregate score that feels okay and everybody can buy into. Yeah, okay, I'm just looking at these notes. Yeah, I think, Jasmine, you've talked about using a questionnaire for feedback, and you can absolutely do that. And that's on our list, our roadmap of tools to produce. So if you've got one already, that would be very good. Thank you very much. I've also used a tool in cases where I really can't get buy-in to do deep dive workshops with as much of the staff as I might like. I think there's great value in doing these personal workshops. I think that for the helicopter workshops, you can do those in about an hour, hour and a half, couple of hours. If you've got it, is nice, depending on the amount of discussion you want. But for me, the value is in the discussion, and the numbers pop out at the end, and they're valuable later. But getting people to understand this is really good. But sometimes you just can't. In which case, setting up some online surveys and getting a broader spectrum of people to participate is really good. What I tend to do is focus on one topic. It tends to blow people's minds if we do a survey that covers all the departments and all the competencies at once. So I'll say, let's just go and do content. And it might be think about your department and give us your view on the content in your department, and then think and give us a score. And we'll guide people through that, and then run it as a series of surveys. Go, this month or this week, we're going to be thinking about collaboration in your department, and then we can collate that data and plot it onto the tool in the same sort of way. Or if you're really clever, we can go and point Power BI at it, but I haven't done that yet. So that's how I would do that. But again, if anyone's got any of those surveys already worked up, that would be brilliant. We'll get them up onto the GitHub and doc site and credit the authors. Let me see if there are any other questions. Simon, any other questions you want to call out?
Seb would like a longer discussion, so I think it would be interesting to go through in a bit more depth, understand Seb's points, I guess, too. There's lots of.
So I'm going to come back to the point that Seb makes about doing a deep dive into the individual characteristics, just to sort of round this off, because I think, I would love to go and do the deep dive with everybody in every organisation, but that's probably not going to happen. So this is about starting at the top, demonstrating some interesting insights, and then using that to get buy-in to go the next level down. So.
Ralph was talking about, tooling to help visualize this information. So Power BI, and we have talked about that. There's some really interesting data models that you could have around, but I guess you've got to get that schema in place first. So I think that just takes a bit of time. And I think it'd be really interesting to be able to look at maturity in different industries and sectors and things, and sizes of companies as well.
One of the things we have discussed is creating some sort of benchmark models where you can compare yourself against other similar organisations, but we need to capture the data first. So this is a step towards that. Again, we've got some basic visualizations built in here. If anyone's got the skills to build us some tooling in Power BI that makes it even better, then that would be fantastic, because that's the limit of my skill set. I'm also just going to draw your attention to this gap analysis. This one isn't a very exciting gap analysis, but if I just go and tweak some of these numbers. So let me, there is another point, which is where we talked about this 12-month target. So let's just say that we need to make our lifecycle management and our content identification and our presentation skills all considerably better than we are at the moment. Let's just see what that does to our gap analysis. So this representation or visualization is intended to show us where we've got a real problem in the organization. And that's what I use to go and talk to senior management and go, look, there is a problem here. The rest of it we can manage probably organically, but this needs some effort thrown at it. This gap analysis implication is something which I spend time talking to the senior people with when I run these workshops. Go, look, taking these small baby steps, going up a couple of 100 points is doable. But if I've got a gap which is in the 300 to 400 range, like this one is, then that's a problem. I probably need to do that in 2 steps. I need to take the organisation from wherever they are up a couple of 100 points, and then do another iteration. Doing a 400 or 500 point step usually is ineffective or breaks organisations. That's been my experience. But you can have that conversation and decide what it looks like for your organisation.
Hey, Simon.
Yeah.
Apologize, just wanted to cut in, just wanted to make a time check. It's about 15 minutes till, so I didn't know what time you wanted to set up discussions, but let me know when to stop the recording.
Thanks for that. I'll come back to that in a minute. I'm just going to try and kick on a couple of other questions which have been asked. I think that there's a lot of stuff around the whole measuring the benefit, but putting some hard dollars behind those benefits. Again, if people have got some insights into how to do that, we'd be very interested. It's something we've been talking about for nearly a year now. We haven't got a good model for quantifying the benefits. So if anyone's got any insights that they can share with us, that would be fantastic. Looking through. So Patrick, I'm going to read your slide in more detail later, because that looks like there's something interesting there.
Yeah, Seb is asking, how do we get this to scale? Going beyond SME and the low end, mid tier, and how is it going to fit the enterprise? And I guess, it's going to take. You've got to start somewhere, haven't you? You've got to start small and then grow. So I don't have an answer to that one.
So yeah, this is Seb's question. So I have run this with enterprises, not this model because this one's brand new for 365, but its predecessor. I've run with organisations in the 10 to 12,000 person range, and you can make it work. In my experience, you've just got to be sort of quite persistent at getting the organisational buy-in and then being selective. You clearly can't do it with everybody. But what I typically do is run it with on a department or business division basis, and I'll run it with a management group, and I'll run it with a representation of the shop floor or the ordinary both knowledge worker and sort of hands-on workers. So maybe 2 or 3 workshops to get a representative view of the organisation. So I'll do that, and that's the high-level helicopter view. Then I take it back to the insights, back to senior management. Go, right, these are the areas we need to look at. According to the insights we've got, we need to go and do a deep dive around communication and marketing. We need to go do a deep dive around security and operations. This is what I'd like to do, and then we'll map out a program of work for that. And once we're on board, hopefully they'll let us run it and they'll fund it. We'll go and do it, and then we'll see what the outcomes are, and then we'll go and rinse and repeat. Yeah, again, Ralph, you made the important point. We know that you're dragging people out of organisations to do this. These things are significantly cost intensive. It might be an internal cost, but it's still a cost.
Yeah, I mean, it's like any project though. If you don't put the effort in, then you don't get the results that the business will want. So you do have to put effort in. We've all been on projects where the effort doesn't, it doesn't come from the customer, and so they don't get what they necessarily would have liked because they don't realise they need to put the effort that they do.
Yeah, so Ralph, again, I think you're saying maybe the way of doing ROI is by showing the cost of not doing that. And there are some things that we can do. I think what we haven't been able to do is create a model yet that says, oh, well, we're turning this feature on, which is related to improving this maturity level in one part of the organisation is worth, $1,000 a day. We haven't got that right now because it's just complicated. It depends on the size of the organisation and their profit model and the industry they're in, all these things. But maybe what we could do is at least produce a tool where you can plug those numbers in and say, what is the cost of compliance? What is the cost of a security breach? What is the cost of a 2% decrease in operational efficiency? And let people punch those numbers in. It will give them at least a talking point. The issue I've got is whenever I've built financially driven models, I end up having people just arguing about the model assumptions rather than taking the broad picture and going, oh, so it could be somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 saving if we do or don't do this. But nevertheless, I think building some tools is going to be valuable. And thank you for the Forrester and Gartner model. Again, that would be kind of interesting. We need to build some models. We know how valuable it is. Right now, it tends to be a conversation about if you don't do this and you screw up in this operational or governance or whatever it is arena, what's that going to cost you?